started going to weekly therapy, which in the early 90s was kind of a weird thing. You wouldn't admit it to your friends. But so we'd skateboard around Stanford campus. I was doing my thing. And then twice a week, I would go in and see this therapist. He's a remarkable guy because he had deep training in the mind, right? And we started talking about what was going on. And he really picked up on the fact that there was essentially no structure, no home life for me, but that I had a strong drive and I was really interested in learning. I mean, I was enthusiastic and motivated enough to, skateboard as hard as I could, even though I wasn't going to go anywhere with it. So at that point, and the fact that I had a girlfriend, I started looking for something that I could do. And at one point I thought I'd join the fire service because it seemed like the camaraderie was good. At that point I started strengthening my body a bit because I didn't want to keep getting hurt. So I started running, I started lifting weights. A football coach at Gunn actually turned me on to fitness. It's actually an interesting guy. He wrote the script for that movie, Mr. Mom. Do you remember that movie?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because his wife bet him that
bizarre.
he couldn't do what she could do, which was stay home with the kids. And he was this big, strong football coach. And so he made her a bet and he lost. And so he wrote that script. Michael Keaton played so he taught me, he was like, look, you can't even do a pull-up. You need to start doing your pull-ups. You need to start running, and he said the fire service might be good for you. So I was spinning out, but there were people that were willing to kind of, point me in the right direction. So what ended up happening was my high school girlfriend went off to college, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I actually went and I lived in the parking lot outside her dormitory. I just wanted to be near her. She was my family at that point.
A college locally, or
she was at UC Santa Barbara.
Oh, so you drove down, and
I just drove down. I just camped out in the parking lot, and I was starting to get into some martial arts and Thai boxing then. So I think I was teaching some Thai boxing, self-defense stuff on campus and doing this kind of thing. And by the end of that year, I realized that I should probably apply to college. So I applied to UCSB, and somehow I got in. Lord knows how I got in. Because I did eventually graduate high school, barely. Got in, and then after a year, I just completely flailed it. I wasn't going to class. I was getting into fights. A lot of that kind of mischief and kind of wildness was still in me. And what ended up happening was I got into a physical altercation on July 4th, 1994 with like a bunch of guys. And at the end of that, I walked back to the place I was staying. And of course I wasn't paying rent because I had learned in those years, like you can just squat in an empty house. So, it's Isla Vista, California, so I was really running wild and went back and I realized I was like, this picture is really bad. At some point, this isn't going to be like a kid who had some problems. This is going to be truly.
It's not cute anymore.
It's not cute anymore.
No one's going to make excuses about your upbringing or the lack of parenting. It just becomes, you're going to end up being a ward of the state. I mean, it sounds like you were almost a feral animal.
Totally feral. Actually, and I have some close friends that's how they refer to me. They're
really?
Like, feral. And it's funny, even to this day, I mean, I'll get to where this eventually took me, but even to this day, when I go into a home where it's clearly like a loving home where there's kids are happy and there's good food and it's warm and cozy, I always feel this thing like, wow, like amazing. I sort of want to be adopted by them immediately. But I'm 45 years old, so that's not appropriate at this age.
What's so interesting, I keep thinking about David Epstein's book, Range. Did you read this book? Which is basically this thesis that some of the most successful people are not, we suspect that, the great talents of the world across all disciplines are the people who discover their passion at an early age and practice it voraciously for many, many, many years. But in fact, it's people more like yourself who've